right now with the series, I'm curious to know how long the author intends to make Undead Unluck, because the series so far, like sales wise, seems to be doing pretty well. It doesn't seem to be in any form of area that you have to worry about it getting axed. It's like on volume 4, which again, I like this new volume cover. I think the colors are nice, but the series has already got like its end boss established. It has a primary villain set up, and it has like the main one of the main characters, because with the series it's kind of like a joint setup between Andy and Izumo. But Izumo even saying this chapter, this isn't the same Andy, but saying that she loved him in this chapter was surprising. Like this, I just didn't expect it to be this early. Like we know, we know how their character relationship has been. We know where it's obviously gonna go, but to have it this early was surprising. But I guess if it's already established that like Andy's aiming for Izumo since the beginning, it makes sense to have that relationship kind of going somewhere way earlier rather than it just being on the back burner plotline forever. So I'm curious to know where the author is going to go with that storyline, just because they're going about it very early. But I'm wondering like how much of that is going to develop before before we even really get into like the next major parts of the arc, or like how it'll go in this next arc, because we haven't had a long arc yet, and we're at a point where we could get that long arc, but with Undead Unluck, you never know, because like I said, it's still very fresh and very new. I mean, it's a year old or so, like about to be a year old, but that doesn't change the fact that it's still new in the eyes of like comparing it to a lot of these other manga. And I haven't read anything from this author otherwise. I don't think that they've had another series that's been serialized. I was gonna say another one shot, but just another series that is their creation that you can kind of gauge it off of, and try to grasp on what their style is, what their kind of like larger scale game is going to be. Because Undead Unluck, it could end in the 20 chapters, it can end in 200 chapters. We don't know what these authors plans are, but I would assume in Weekly Shonen Jump, and with it being successful, that they're going to try and go for at least like I always assume over 100 chapters, just because when it comes to Weekly Shonen Jump, I assume that they're aiming for manga that they can get a lot out of. Like, they don't want something that's like, oh, you're successful, but you're going to be really short. I think that Kimetsu no Yaiba is just it is an anomaly in the setup. The fact that it is such a short series, but because of like how well like its anime like exploded in popularity, that it's grown to have like really high numbers while still being like, I think only like, I don't remember exactly the manga numbers, but I think it was only like 150 chapters or something. I don't remember the exact number, but I remember it not being very big. Because when I think usually of a successful big series, my mindset is like in the 300 chapters or so. The difference between like this is like, mine is like an assumption, like you don't have to have that long, but that's just kind of where I would guess, like if you had a shonen series, just the weekly shonen series rather, just be successful, because I assume that these big companies are wanting to kind of get as much out of them as possible. But Undead Unluck is really weird because it, like I said, it already has a lot of the further like series stuff already set up. Like we have like I said, the big end game. We have like the big villain group, and we have now one of the main characters like confessing our feelings towards the other main character. And it's not the full same, because she didn't say it to like the actual Andy we know, and they are saving stuff for the story. Like we're getting Andy's backstory, and we even get a little bit more, because during this, like for the most part, this chapter is just Izumo experiencing time with Andy and them having like some really close intimate moments. Like for the most part, it's more of like what I'm doing here. It's more about a just talk about the status of the series itself rather than the chapter itself. Because for the chapter itself, it was mostly like Andy telling some of the people in that previous town to pour some beer once a year on the graves of his friends, members of his crew to kind of honor them. And then you just see them, you know, meeting new members of the crew, and like there's like a mention of Budweiser and stuff. Just some like very much minor of note events. Whereas this whole thing is like that the biggest part of the chapter, just kind of going through it. You had that scene where it's just a bunch of different instances of Izumo going through one of Andy's memories, and then like the stuff at the end with Izumo and Andy. Like I said, it was much more leaning on just their relationship as characters rather than the specifics of what happens in the chapter itself. So, like I mentioned, like it's weird going into what's happening right now and knowing we're only like 40 or so chapters in, just because it'll be really odd if Undead Unluck is only like 100 or so chapters. Like these series having way shorter runs, like Kimetsu no Yaiba. I know Chainsaw Man is entering its final arc, so just assuming, you know, 30 to, you know, or 30 or 40 or so chapters in another arc, and then Chainsaw Man will be gone. Then that's only going to be, you know, around that 130, 140 chapter mark that was within the proximity of what Kimetsu no Yaiba had. And Undead Unluck, like, again, it'll be really surprising if they end up doing another one of these short series after getting successful, because in Shonen Jump especially, like if you don't meet like a above like standard threshold, they axe them within like the first 4 months. So in my head, whenever they get like a series that is, you know, that takes off, is successful, I always assumed that they would want to hold on to that as much as possible, especially when they've had so many other big series end recently, and they're like, they have a couple other big ones right now, but like one of them being like, because they have like One Piece and My Hero, but One Piece is somewhere within sight of the end. We don't know how long My Hero will go. Chainsaw Man and Jujutsu Kaisen, we don't know at all like how long those are gonna go. The only thing we know is Chainsaw Man is seemingly in its final arc, could extend, who knows. Jujutsu Kaisen, we have no real idea overall. It's just a little odd, but I don't know. I like Undead Unluck. I'm hoping that it goes to the author's full extent of what their plan is, not of like what they have to get rushed or what they have to kind of like extend out beyond where they want to. Like, it's different if Shonen Jump says, hey, we want to do like an extra couple volumes, and they said, oh, okay. But, you know, trying to force them is different, or trying to like start up more story without a plan, you know, could hurt the story itself. So I'm looking forward to what's to come. Like I said, this chapter, it's not so much as just talking about what happened, because, like I said, I've summarized what happened in this chapter pretty well. In a shorter span of time, a bulk of this review has just been going over where things are right now. What is the current status of Undead Unluck, and, you know, what kind of things are to come up. I'm really just hoping we start to meet more of the other characters. Because, again, it's weird that we had so much focus on Andy right now, and then coupled in with the other kind of, like, instances you would expect way later along the series, while not doing anything really with the side characters. It is a little alarming, but I don't think that the series is getting axed. I mean, like, they're on volume 4 now, and they could have easily rushed stuff here if they wanted to, but nothing here feels rushed. It's only in the aspects of certain things being presented, like, you know, main character, like, confession stuff or big villain thing. Outside of that, there's no like rush plot lines that are just getting zipped out of it. Like, if they just TLDR'd Victor within like a page or two, I'd be like, okay, yeah, the series is in trouble. But they're not doing that, so we'll see. Like I said, I'm hyped to figure out what's to come up next. But other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, prefer the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. But other than that, I appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. Bye.